Welcome everybody to another edition of New Japan 2004 here in TEW 2020, as it's time for the second half of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, as we're going to have the whole rest of the tournament and the finals in this video. So before we get rolling with that, including this first show from Gifu, let's go over the tournament standings as they are before this show. So in Block A, we've got at the bottom Akira Anzawa, 0 points, Nafumi Yamamoto with 2 points, Curryman and Roderick Strong tied at 4 points, Takayam 4 at 5 points, El Samurai at 6 points, and leading at the moment is Taiji Ishimori with 7 points, and this is all with 3 matches left. And then Block B, we have Bring Up the Rear, Young Boy Taguchi with 0 points, Inoue, Katushi Takamura, and Brian Danielson with 2 points. Then we've got Fujita, Milano Collection AT, and Liger with 6 points, and leading right now the Junior Heavyweight Champion Heat with 8 points. But let's get rolling with our first show of the second half of the tour. And we start out with a decent opener as Mother Tev Machit and Embarrassing Wrestling. Tiger Mask 4 defeats Akira Anzawa in 10:33 by pinfall with a Tiger Suplex hold. This gets a 47. Tiger Mask 4 gets a 55. Anzawa gets a 23 because he's a young boy. And a solid win for Tiger Mask 4, another 2 points for him. And then in another match, in about that easy arms for the crowd with Power Wrestling, Heat gets the win over Inoue in 6:42 by submission. A straightforward, strong win here for Heat as he gets a 62, Inoue gets a 45, and a 60 overall. And then after that, we have in a junior 6-man of some people who are not wrestling singles matches on this card. In a bit of a shocker, Dragon, Crayman, and Taguchi, of all people, get the win over Yamamoto, El Samurai, and Milano Collection AT. In 14:41, Crayman pins Yamamoto with the best moves all over. This gets a 56. Danielson gets a 61. Taguchi gets a 32. Crayman gets a 57. Milano Collection AT gets a 58. El Samurai gets a 57. And Yamamoto gets a 30. So strong win here. And then in the second half of the matches in the tournament, we have Liger defeating Katushi Takamura in 9:04 by pinfall the Sheer Car Brainbuster. This gets a 56. Straightforward win for Liger as he gets a 60. Takamura gets a 41. And then final match of the night in a sort of big match. Koji Yamamoto gets the big win over Roderick Strong in 13:45 pinfall. The Dragon Suplex hold. Strong gets to look like a tough battle here, but Kanamo's a veteran with a long history of success here in the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, as he gets the win here with Dragon Suplex hold. SS gets a 63, Kanamo gets a 61, and Strong gets a 52. Now moving on to the rest of the card, in a sort of like mid-card battle, Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, and Goto get the win over Chiyotsun, Nagai, and Toshio Goto in 9:59. When Tanahashi pins Goto, this gets a 55. Goto gets a 36, Blue Wolf gets a 42, Tanahashi gets a 70, Goto gets a 29, Nagai gets a 53, and Ryoto gets a 40. So just a strong win over sort of the mid-cards plus the old veterans for the sort of up-and-coming team, including young boy Goto. And then in another match, as Chono continues his team with Supernova-gun, Chono and Nishimura defeat Yasuda and Yoshi in 7:26 when Chono pins Yasuda with a shiny Suzuki kick. This gets a 57. Nishimura gets a 59. Chono gets a 63. Yoshi gets a 34, and Yasuda gets a 46. And after this, it's officially announced that the match at the Osaka card for the tag titles will be our current champions. Ooh, I just need to triple check. Yeah. It's going to be Norton and Madame Nakanishi versus Masahiro Chono and Shinya Makabe. I tested both Makabe and Ishimori just to see if there would be any sort of like weird chemistry, but since there isn't, we have to get the younger guy in the prominent place here. And there we go. And then after that, we have actually a big victory here for Pirates Gundam as Sasaki, Nakanishi, Tenru, and Norton get the win over Hirosato, Nago, Yano, and Nagata in about 15 minutes. Suzuki pins Yasuda pins Yano with a Northern Lights bomb as he gets a 53. Gordon gets a 65. Tenru gets a 46. Nakanishi gets a 57. Sasaki gets a 63. Nagata gets a 74 because he's great. Yano gets a 27. Nago gets a 25. And Sato gets a 40. So sort of a, lots of over people on one card and one over guy plus a bunch of other people on their card, and it is what it is. And then, all right, interesting. As Takayama and Barnett get the win over Tenzan and Kodaka in 14 minutes when Barnett submits Kodaka. So a strong win here for Barnett over Kodaka. Unfortunately, Kodaka, his team Tenzan loses. and no chemistry note for him either, as this gets a 68. Basically it's Tenzan and Takayama still brawling all over, but in the end, Barnett gets the win over Nagata. Nagata gets a 56, Tenzan gets a 75, Barnett gets a 52, and Takayama gets a 58. And then in our main event of the evening, Nakamura and Makabe get the win over Murakami and Azuka when Nakamura pins Azuka with a German suplex hold. This gets a 63, Nakamura gets a 70, Makabe gets a 47, Azuka gets a 50, and Murakami gets a 54. And overall, the show gets a 65. So, not the most exciting, tour card to open up things here, but we're still building towards the big show. Not the big show, but the upcoming Osaka card, and then of course, the Best of the Super Junior finals. But let's just see if there's any random injuries or news, and then we'll go from there as this loads. Azuka, yeah. Okay. I mean, sure. Interesting click there. All right, I'll be back in just a second with the next match in the tour. All right, time for the second show of the second half of the tour as we're continuing on the road to Osaka and then the Best of the Super Junior final, so let's get rolling. We actually start off with a non-junior heavyweight match as we have basically a battle on the inner card of a bunch of people who are their young lions who are not being able to push at all, as Nagai, Goto, and Ryoto defeat Yano, Yasuda, and Yoshi in 10 minutes when Goto pins Yano with Go to Heaven, so Young Lion pins Young Lion. This gets a 35, Ryoto gets a 40, Goto gets a 37, Nagai gets a 52. Honestly, I'm probably under pushing him a bit, but Yoshi gets a 35, Yasuda gets a 44, and Yano gets a 26. So yeah, not much going on here, but a basic match getting people on the show and get some in-ring time, and get some time, honestly, these people are, probably buy some snacks. And then after that, we have a solidly big one as Curryman defeats Yamamoto in 9 minutes, pinfall with best moves all over. This gets a 39, Curryman gets a 58, Yamamoto gets a 32. Unfortunately, gets the pre-show, thingamajig, but unfortunately, pre-show malice, but still a big one for Curryman here as we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of the junior heavyweight tournament. Then another matchup gets the pre-show ding, and Milano Collection AT gets a strong win over Young Lion Taguchi in a little over 7 minutes. As gets a 39, Milano Collection AT gets a 58, Taguchi gets a 32, and just a straight ahead win from Milano. And then in a 6-man match here, we have Heat, Tiger Mask, and Inoue, which has sort of been a group lately. Defeating Kanemoto, Sugawara, and Takamura in 13 minutes when Inoue submits Sugawara. So Inoue hasn't had much success here, at least in my bookings. We give him a bit of a win here, as I think it's a 54. Unfortunately, he got a bruised tailbone, but he's got a 54. Tiger Mask 4 gets a 55. Inoue gets a 43. Takamura gets a 47. Sugawara gets a 38, and Kanemoto gets a 64. And then, in a big one here, Danielson actually upsets Fujita a bit with a fast roll-up, as this gets 13 minutes, and he gets 2 huge points here, as Danielson gets a 62, Fujita gets 38. So actually, not much of they were basically tied, and Danielson was running behind, so he gets a big win, and he's up to, I believe, 4 points. And after that, in sort of the biggest match of the night as far as the junior heavyweight tournament, Ishimori gets the win over El Samurai in 14 minutes with Superstar Elbow. This gets a 54, Ishimori gets a 51, and Samurai gets a 49. And then as we move forward, Tanahashi and Kodaka team up, and they get the win over Barnett and Azuka in 13 minutes when Tanahashi pins Azuka. This gets a 67, Kodaka gets a 58, Tanahashi gets a 69, Azuka gets a 54, Barnett gets a 58. So it's a straight ahead win. Kodaka gets team up with one of our rising stars, and a solid win for the under 30 heavyweight champion. Then in, honestly, a shockingly good match, Murakami, Suzuki, and Takayama defeat Tenzan, Nagata, and Blue Wolf in 19 minutes when Suzuki actually gets the pin over Nagata. So this gets a 72, Blue Wolf gets a 43, Nagata gets a 71, Tenzan gets a 77, Takayama gets a 64, Suzuki gets 69, Murakami gets a 51, and this sets up another big tag. This sets up a big tag match for the Osaka show. So this is actually going to be Minoru Suzuki and Kazunori Murakami versus Yuji Nagata and Not Tenzan, because he's unfortunately wrestling. And so he'll instead have a new teammate in the form of, which will be announced later, like within a few days, it will be none other than the man, the myth, the legend, once I actually find him on here. Bill Goldberg. So big match here in Osaka. But this got 7-2 and sort of sets up that match. And then in a big main event match, as Nakamura, Makame, and Ishimori face off against the Pirates Gun team of Sasaki and the tag champs Nakaji and Orton. In this case, Pirates Gun then get the win as Sasaki pins Ishimori, who's the one person not involved in the title matches all, in a little over under 18 minutes, as this gets a 68, Ishimori gets a 54, Makabe gets a 46, Nakamura gets a 71, Orton gets a 64, Nakanishi gets a 58, and Sasaki gets a 68. And then basically we have the Sasaki Nakamura showdown, continuing to put forth the big Osaka match as this gets a 63, and overall this gets a 69. So again, not the biggest show, but still solid stuff, continuing to build up things. First the Osaka and the best of the Super Juniors, and I'll go over the updated standings here for the best of Super Junior in just a moment. As this slowly loads up. So oof, that's bad from Sugawara. Let me see here. Medical, okay, I mean, yeah, he's being worked through it, not the end of the world. And okay, so Yakuma's out in 11 days, so does that push through Sunday week 2 in June? Okay, so he should be able to pull off. Okay, actually, I'm actually going to slightly change the pre-booking here. So it's actually going to be Nagata and Tenzan teaming up one more time, take on Suzuki and Takayama. But also, as a special singles match, Bill Goldberg will take on Kazunori Murakami. So why not? And then as an update on the tournament itself, as we find that, tournament third. Okay, so first, A block, with everybody having 2 matches left. Anzawa has 0 points. Yamamoto has 2 points. Strong has 4 points. Curryman, El Samurai, and Kanemoto all have 6 points. Diagrams 4 has 7 points, and Ishimori has 9 points. So Ishimori has matches versus Anzawa and Yamamoto. So honestly, he might run the table here. This might be a thing where he just wins the table, and it just like is the really strong push. For Tiger Mask 4, he has matches versus El Samurai and versus Strong. So these like sort of allies, but they'll both be very tough matches. Then we have Kanemoto, who has Anzo and Curryman. Then we have El Samurai, who has matches versus Yamamoto and Tiger Mask 4, as noted, and Curryman, who has matches versus, as noted, Kanemoto and Strong. So whoever ends up the winner of that will probably face will go advance along with Ishimori, and then in the other half of the blocks we have Taguchi with 0 points, Takamura with 2 points, also Inoue, Danielson with 4 points. We have Fujita with 6 points. Then we have Milano Collection AT and Liger with 8 points, and of course the junior heavyweight champion Heat with 10 points. So Heat has matches versus Liger and Milano Collection AT left. So those 2 huge, what's what I'm looking for? Those 2 huge matches will figure out who advances to the tournament. There's an off chance of Fujita pulling it off if he gets the win over Liger and over Inoue. He'll have 10 points, so depending on how the Milano Liger Heat thing goes, he has an outside chance of getting the win with tiebreakers. Danielson can cause some problems if he well, actually, no. But he can have a solid mid-table finish. So that'll be interesting to see. And Fujita, yeah, again, if he beats Liger and then he wins the match versus Inoue, that means he'll have the tiebreaker over Liger if there's some sort of tie there. And he also has, let me see here, also has wins over Milano Collection AT, but he did lose the heat, so that'll be interesting how that all goes. But we'll just have to see how that goes in just a moment as we continue with the tournament. Great, time for the next show in the Best of the Super Juniors Tour, the back end, as we're at day 10, and we've got a couple junior heavyweight tag matches, a junior heavyweight matches, a junior heavyweight tag, and some biggish matches on the upper card as we continue the road to Osaka and the Best of the Super Junior finals. Let's start with Ishimori getting a win over Anzawa in a little over 6 minutes with the Hurricanrana. This gets a 32, Ishimori gets a 51, and Anzawa gets a 22. As we continue to build him, gets the pre-show now, but what can you do? We have Danielson defeating Takamura in a little over 10 minutes by submission with cattle mutilation. As this gets a 58, Danielson with 62, Takamura with a 42. Fairly straightforward win here. And then we have Heat, Inoue, and El Samurai defeating Milano Collection AT, Koji Kanemoto, and Sugawara when Heat submits Sugawara. And as a result of this match, it's officially announced that another match at Osaka will be Milano Collection AT and Koji defending the tag titles against Toro Inoue and Tiger Mask 4. Of course, they had a couple matches so far where Koji and Milano have gone over, but of course, Tiger Mask 4 got a win over Kanemoto, which sets up this match. $61 overall, Samurai gets a 55, Inoue gets a 44, he gets a 61 despite having his bruised tailbone. Sugawara gets a 37, Kanemoto gets a 67, and Milano Collection AT gets a 59. And then in the next match of the junior heavyweight match, Tiger Mask 4 gets the win over Roderick Strong here. Wait, did I do the thing where I booked a guy in 2 matches in one night? I think I just did. Maybe not. I think I just did, though. Anyway, Tiger Mask 4 gets the win here over Roderick Strong with the Tiger Suits hold in a little over 60 minutes. This gets a 53. They haven't clicked, though, but Tiger Mask 4 gets a 50. Roderick Strong gets a 45. And then in the next match, which unfortunately is a thing where I have to give Liger a whole bunch of money because this game doesn't understand that when you book in round robin tournaments, wrestlers are a little more okay with taking losses. Liger draws with Fujita here in 20 minutes and the timeline expires as this gets a 54. Liger gets a 61, Fujita gets a 31. And then in our next match, Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, Kodaka, and Goto defeats Yoshi, Yasuda, Nagai, and Ryota into 14 minutes when Kodaka pins Ryota. This gets a 56. Goto gets a 37, Kodaka gets a 59, Blue Wolf gets a 44, Tanahashi gets a 69, Ryota gets a 35, Nagai gets a 56, Yasuda gets a 46, and Yoshi gets a 37. Just a strong one for the mid-carders here. As then next in a continuation of the feud here, Suzuki, Azuka, Barnett, and Takayama of the Shooters get a win over Tenzan, Nagata, Sato, and Nago when Takayama gets the big ever suplex hold on the veteran Sato and a big win as this gets a 67. Takayama gets a 65, Barnett gets a 57, Azuka gets a 57, Suzuki gets a 70, Nago gets a 25, Sato gets a 39, Nagata gets a 71, and Tenzan gets a 75. And then in a main event, Norton, Nakanishi, and Tenryu get the win over Chono, Makabe, and Ishimori when Norton pins Nishimura. This gets a 61. Honestly, not that good a match. Nishimura gets a 54. Makabe gets a 48. Chono gets a 62. Tenryu gets a 45. Nakanishi gets a 57. And Norton gets a 65. And overall, show gets a 63. So yeah, not the best show there, but pretty okay. I imagine Liger Fujita was the draw along with Chono appearing. But yeah, not the best show, but not the worst show either. As we continue on the road here, let's just double check here as we see if there's any interesting mail. Survey says. All right, Inoki doesn't think Barnett connect. I mean, you brought it, bring him in, and Nagata thinks Danielson's a star. Well, And just double check. Did I do the thing where No, okay, I had Heat, Inoue, and a Samurai team. Okay, so I didn't screw that up. Okay, so that's good. I'll be back in just a moment with the next show on the tour. All right, time for the last show before Osaka in this tour, as we got 4 more junior Best of the Super Juniors matches, a somewhat big junior tag match, and some other fun matches, including sort of the final setups for the Osaka matches. So let's get rolling. We start off with Inoue getting a win over Taguchi in a little over 10 minutes by submission. This gets the pre-show, unfortunately, but Taguchi gets a 33, Inoue gets a 41, 31 overall, and Inoue gets a big win here as he gets to have a respectable finish here in the tournament, and Taguchi, well, Taguchi's a young boy. Then we have Samurai getting another win over Yamamoto by pinfall, so another young boy taking the fall, as this gets a 51, Samurai gets a 56, Yamamoto gets a 31. Solid stuff. Then in our tag match, we have Liger and Takayam 4, sort of, super mask guys, getting the win over Danielson and Strong. This goes over a little over 13 minutes. This gets a 59. Unfortunately, Strong and Danielson don't have any chemistry as a team. Danielson gets a 53, Strong gets a 45, Takayam 4 gets a 57, and Liger gets a 58. Then we have Crayman drawing with Koji Kanemoto in 20 minutes when the time limit expires. This gets a 61, Kanemoto gets a 52, Crayman gets a 59, and this sort of makes things interesting going into the last day of the tournament, and the last matches of the tournament. And then we have Milano Collection AT getting the big win over the junior heavyweight champion Heat in 1253 by pinfall, as one half of the junior tag champs gets the win over the current IWGP junior heavyweight champion in a 53. Milano Collection AT gets a 51. He gets a 55, mainly because of his injury, and he was off his game. But a big win for Milano. And as we move forward, Kodaka and Blue Wolf get a win over Nagai and Rota in a 42. Kodaka gets a 59. Blue Wolf gets a 46. Rota gets a 37. Nagai gets a 57. Pre-show, sort of, malice, but still a solid win as Kodaka teams up somebody else and still no chemistry for him. And then in sort of a preview of the, little war we've been having between the shooters and Nagata and Tenzan and everybody else, Murakami and Takayama get the win over Nagata and Nagao when Takayama pins Nagao with the Everest Rumux. This gets a 61, Takayama gets a 58, Murakami gets a 49, now gets a 26, and now gets a 70. Unfortunately, Takayama and Murakami don't have any chemistry as a team. Not the end of the world. And then in a sort of match to put them over, Tanahashi and Goto defeat Tatsuji Goto and Saito in 849 when Tanahashi pins Goto. And this is very interesting. Tanahashi and Old Hiroki have great chemistry when teaming together. So Goto gets a 36, Tanahashi gets a 72, Saito gets a 40, and Goto gets a 29. So that's interesting for the future. And then in a continued preview of the start of feud that's happening, Suzuki, Barnett, and Azuka defeat Tenzan, Yasuda, and Yoshi in 9 minutes when Suzuki pins Yoshi. So basically, Tenzan teams up from lower card guys and takes the fall as the shooters are together, as this gets a 64. Azuka gets a 56, Barnett gets a 57, Suzuki gets a 69, Yoshi gets a 36, Yasuda gets a 45, and Tenzan gets a 73. And then Tenzan and Takayama brawl one more time before the big tag match at Osaka. And then in the main event, in a 70, Sasaki and Tenru of Pirates Gundam get the big win over Chono and IWGP Nakamura when in a couple days before the Osaka show, Sasaki pins Nakamura with the Northern Lights bomb. This gets a 70, Nakamura gets a 73, Chono gets a 63, Tenru gets a 45, and Sasaki gets a 67. And then Sasaki holds up the belt before throwing it back at Nakamura as this gets a 61, and overall the show gets a 65. So solid stuff here. Sort of a couple big finishes here. And then, of course, even though the Osaka show is part of the Best of the Super Juniors tour, there's not going to be any Best of Super Juniors matches on it, mainly because then that would mean there's no shot at there's no reason for the last couple tour shows to happen. So got to build that up before we go to the finals. Let me just look at all Japan did. Kawada defeated Kojima to retain the title in 77. Ogawa defeated Sakamoto in 83, and some other matches. Fun stuff. Chono thinks Blue Wolf needs to learn how to sell. I mean, you're not wrong. But yeah, as far as rebooking and the matches that are announced, we have Nakamura versus Sasaki for the title, Norton Akishi defending the titles against Chono and Makabe, Suzuki and Takayama versus Nagata and Tenzan, Milano Collection AT and Kanemoto defending the IWGP Junior Tag Titles versus Inoue and Tiger Mask 4, and Goldberg versus Murakami in a special singles match in Goldberg's Osaka debut. Of course, there'll be other matches on the show, but that's it for now. So I'll be back with that in just a moment. Alright, it's now time for the big Osaka show, live from Osaka Castle Hall, where we've got 11 big matches, including a Young Lion special 8-man tag, a 6-man involving Tanahashi and the Shooters, a 4-way junior tag, a junior tag title defense, like Tenryu versus Nishimura, Goldberg versus Murakami, a tag title defense, a big tag team match between Suzuki and Takayama versus Nagata and Tenzan, and of course the main event, Nakamura defending the IWGP title versus Sasaki. Now let me just move this up a match. There we go. Alright, so let's get rolling. Straight from the start with a Young Line special as the mid-card team of Ryoto, Yasuda, Nagai, and Yoshi defeat Goto, Nyago, Yano, and Yamamoto in 1438 when Nagai submits Nago. So this gets a 33 because of the pre-show stuff. Yano gets a 31, Yano gets a 25, Nago gets a 24, Goto gets a 36, Yoshi gets a 38, Nagai gets a 55, Yasuda gets a 47, and Ryoto gets a 39. So, not a terrible match, but a good beginning, and Young Lions aren't quite there to get the win yet, unfortunately for them. And then in our first official match, in a really good match actually, Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, and Kodaka get a big win here over Murakami, Barnett, and Azuka. When Tanahashi gets the big win over Murakami, this gets a 67. Azuka gets a 58, Barnett gets a 60, Murakami gets a 57, Kodaka gets a 60, Blue Wolf gets a 49, and Tanahashi gets a 73. And then in our next match, Fujita and Ishimori defeat Dragon and Curryman, El Samurai and Liger, and Taguchi and Heat when Ishimori pins Taguchi with Superstar Elbow. This gets a 60. Danielson gets a 65. Curryman gets a 63. Liger gets a 59. Samurai gets a 61. Ishimori gets a 49. Fujita gets a 36. Heat gets a 62. And Taguchi gets a 31. El Samurai and Liger have excellent chemistry. And we know Fujita and Ishimori don't work well, but I've already, convinced I'm teaming up, so there we are. And then in a match, so sort of to get these two veterans on the card, Tenryu defeats Nishimura in 9:52 with the 54-year-old. This gets a 52. Tenryu gets a 47. Nishimura gets a 61. Fun stuff, as this sort of is also part of the sort of Pirates Gundin versus Supernova-gun feud. And then in the next match, Milano Collection AT and Kanemoto make the second defense of their IWGP Junior Tag Titles, defeating Tiger Mask 4 and Wichito Inoue in 12 minutes in 66 when Milano Collection AT gets the pin. Kanemoto gets a 70, Milano Collection AT gets a 62, Tiger Mask 4 gets a 57, and Inoue gets a 46. And next match, Goldberg defeats Murakami in 6 minutes. It says it's with Goldberg with the jackhammer. This gets a 61. Goldberg gets a 60. Murakami gets a 53. And then in the next match, Norton and Nakanishi get the big win over Chono and Makabe when Nakanishi pins Makabe with the Hercules cutter. They make defense number 2 of their IWGP Tag Titles. This gets a 68, Nakanishi gets a 62, Norton gets a 68, Makabe gets a 51, and Chono gets a 64. Norton and Nakanishi, of course, have actual chemistry together, which is why this probably gets 68. So big win for the tag champs. And then in our big sort of superstar tag match, honestly, it's probably going to be better than the main event. Nagata and Tenzan get the huge win here over Suzuki and Takayama when Tenzan pins Takayama with the Tenzan Tombstone Driver. This gets an 80. Takayama gets a 65. Suzuki gets a 72. Tenzan gets a 74. And Nagata gets a 78. And as Tenzan is celebrating, Suzuki comes in and attacks Nagata from behind, hits him with the Gotch pile driver, and locks him in the sleeper as New Japan officials try to break it up as this gets 69, and this feud now must continue between these two. And then in our main event, which actually is better than I thought it would be, Nakamura defeats Sasaki in 19 minutes by pinfall, I'm assuming with the penalty kick. Good back and forth match, but Nakamura makes defense number 5 of his IWGP title. This gets a 76. Nakamura gets a 75. Sasaki gets a 71. Not enough selling shown, but it's these two, so what do you expect? And then as Nakamura is celebrating with the title, Goldberg comes out to a huge big pop and basically says, "You're next" to Nakamura. And it seems like Goldberg is the next big challenger for Nakamura for next big show, which will be part of the Summer Struggle Tour, which will basically be the pre-G1 tour. And overall, the show gets a 75. And then next thing up is the last 2 shows of the junior, of the Best of Super Juniors tour, then the tour finals. Okay. Any email? Chono, thanks, Blue Wolf. I mean, that's still true, but as we're going into the final 2 days of the tournament, let's look at the standings. So, Tournament standings in Block A. At the moment, Anzawa has 0 points. Strong has 4 points. Yamamoto has 2 points. Kanemoto has 7 points. Crayman has 7 points. El Samurai has 8 points. Takayam 4 has 9 points. Ishimori has 11 points. So, here's the first thing. Ishimori has he has a spot in the second round no matter what. In semifinals, but he still needs to win. If he defeats Yamamoto, he basically, if he beats, Yamamoto, he basically, wins the tournament without, dropping a fall. In second place is Tiger Mask 4. If he beats El Samurai, he's into the final round. Of course, he can't, even if Ishimori loses, Ishimori has a win over him, but he's still fighting for second place here. And of course, if El Samurai wins, he's then in the driver's seat with 10 points versus 9 points for Tiger Mask 4. Now, the unfortunate thing is I didn't do the best booking, as if Anzawa wins, Kanemoto then has 9 points. But if so, only, basically, Kanemoto's out. Because even if there's a draw, El Samurai will have 9 points, but Tiger Mask 4 will have 10 points. Which I did not do the best booking here. Oh well. Curryman, though, with 7 points, has Strong. So, if he can get another 9-point victory, but Strong can also come out with 6. But anyway, still a tough, so basically 3 people are in it for the final 2 spots. In the Block B, things are a lot more interesting, I think. As Taguchi has 0 points, Takamura has 2 points, Inoue has 4 points, Danielson has 6 points, Fujita has 7 points, Liger has 9 points, Heat and Milano Collection each have 10 points. So the big thing here is Milano Collection AT only has a match versus Takamura. So he's probably in there for 12. But the big thing is Heat versus Liger. It's basically winner take all. If the only thing that can sort of happen here is basically if Heat wins, he's in semifinals. If Liger wins, he's in the semifinals. There's no difference there's nothing else happening here. Even if Milano Collection AT loses, because Milano has the win over Heat, he still advances to the finals. So there you go. But there's just some interesting things. Fujita, if he gets the win over Inoue, could slip into 3rd place, or at least close to it. Danielson has a big match versus Taguchi. So, basically a real have-not situation here. That's basically the second to last match of the second last show of the tour will basically be a lot of matches that don't matter to the finals, and then the final will do, standard way all these tournaments end up. And then they'll have the actual finals on the final day of the tournament. But all that will be in just a moment, so I'll be back with that in just a second. Great, the road to the best of the Super Junior finals continues as we've got the next to last day of the Super Junior tournament, along with some big tag matches and some interesting stuff as we continue to build up to the best of the Super Junior finals. We start out with Kanemoto getting a big win here over Anzawa in a little over 8 minutes with the Dragon Super Hold. It gets a 52. Anzawa gets a 22. Koji gets a 63, and a big solid win here on his last match of the tournament. Ishimori defeats Yamamoto in 7 minutes, in a little over 7 minutes, puts for elbow. It gets a 33. Yamamoto gets a 27. Kishi gets a 51. Unfortunately, the pre-show thing is letting Ishimori, but as I'm going to build him up, unfortunately, can only do what you can do. But a big win for Ishimori to finish out his matches as he basically wins Block A. Then in an interesting 6-man tag, Liger, Samurai, and Curryman defeat Inoue, Heat, and Tiger Mask when Liger pins Heat a day before they face off in basically the match that will decide the other competitor in their block, as this gets a 66, Tiger Mask gets a 56, Inoue gets a 47, Heat gets a 61, Liger gets a 73, Samurai gets a 56, and Curryman gets a 58. And then Milano Collection AT basically wins his block B, as it gets a 41, Milano gets a 56, Takamura only gets a 47, as we get the pre-show ding, unfortunately. And then in the final match, Danielson defeats Taguchi 8-44 by submission with counter mutilation with a 51, Danielson gets a 57, and Taguchi gets a 32. And then in an interesting 6-man tag, basically putting the Pirates Gundin versus the Young Boys, they basically get the strong win here beating Goto, Nego, and Yano when Nakchi pins Nego with Hercules Cutter. It gets a 56. Norn gets a 66. Saki gets 68. Nakanu gets a 59. Yano gets a 24. Nego gets a 26. And Goto gets a 36. Basically, not quite, basically as these guys are sort of like in a bit of status quo for the moment as they, defended their tag titles, but they lost the IWGP title match, so let's figure out what they're doing after the show as we continue the road on the Best of Super Juniors, as in a huge 10-man tag elimination match. The Shooters team of Murakami, Suzuki, Barnett, Azuka, and Takayama defeat Nagata, Tenzan, Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, and Kodaka in 24 minutes. Blue Wolf, Kodaka, Murakami, Azuka, Barnett, Tanahashi, Suzuki, Nagata, and finally Tenzan was eliminated. And this continues to build up the two big matches that are actually set for the Best of Super Juniors along with the tournament, as it's going to be Suzuki versus Nagata and Tenzan versus Takayama one more time. Takayama gets a 64, Azuka gets a 52, Barnett gets a 57, Suzuki gets a 67, Murakami gets a 54, Kodaka gets a 58, Blue Wolf gets a 42, Tanahashi gets a 71, Tenzan gets a 73, and Nagata gets a 74. And then in the final match of the day, Goldberg teams up with Fujita and Bob Sapp and Nagai to defeat Chono, Ishimori, Nakamura, Makabe. When a little over 9 minutes, he pins Ishimori with a spear. This gets a 67. Nagai gets a 56. Sapp gets a 51. Fujita gets a 56. Goldberg gets a 62. Makabe gets a 49. Nakamura gets a 73. Ishimori gets a 67. And Chono gets a 65. And the show itself gets a 67. It's a solid show. And, starting to build up the Goldberg Nakamura match for the next. Remember, it's not happening at the Best of Super Juniors finals, but it is being built up now. And we'll see if there's any interesting mail. As survey says. Nope. I mean, Jado handed his nose, but I was, yeah. Actually, let me just do this right now. Or not. There we go. All right. So, last day of the tournament. And as you can see in Block A, at the moment, Kanemoto has 9 points, but if El Samurai beats Tiger Mask 4, he advances into the finals. And if Curryman gets the win over Strong, he then ties Kanemoto. So, unfortunately, strong win for Kanemoto, but he is out of it. And also, as you can see, Ishimori win basically goes out without losing with 13 points. And same with Milano Collection AT, going 6-1, only losing to Fujita in a bit of a shocker, as he gets 12 points, but Fujita only ends up with 7 points with 1 match to go. But Liger and Heat is the big match of the tournament, as they face off, and the winner will advance into the semifinals on the final day, and the loser will be out. So we'll have to see what happens there, but I'll be back with that in just a moment. All right, it's now time for the final day of the Best of the Super Juniors tour. Then we'll actually have the Best of the Super Juniors finals, as we're at Kurgan Hall. A day before the finals. Let's get this rolling. As we start with the first of the matches that don't really matter as far as the tournament goes, as Fujita gets the win over Inoue in 13 minutes with the Fujita driver. This gets a 31, Fujita gets a 39, and Inoue gets a 37. Pre-show stuff, but again, big win for Fujita as he finishes with, I believe, 9 points. And then Roderick Strong gets a bit of an upset here over Curryman in a little over 13 minutes with the CKO2, as this gets a 37, Curryman gets a 58, Roderick Strong gets a 53. Pre-show limitations, but a big win for Roderick Strong as he upsets Curryman on the final day here. And then in a setup match, Takayama and Azuka get the win over Tenzan and Kodaka when Takayama pins Kodaka with the Everest Junior Suplex, as, the feud between Tenzan and Takayama after teaming together continues, as this gets 68, Kodaka gets a 57, Tenzan gets a 75, Azuka gets a 52, and Takayama gets a 62. And then in the other setup match, which is honestly just as good, Barnett and Suzuki get the win over Nagata and Sato when Suzuki pins Sato, as this gets a 67, Sato gets a 37, Nagata gets a 76, Suzuki gets a 68, and Barnett gets a 57. And then in the first of the big matches, Tiger Mask gets the win over El Samurai in 13 minutes with his Tiger Suplex hold. This gets a 56 overall, not enough selling. El Samurai gets a 50, Tiger Mask gets a 57. As you can see, Block A is now finished with Ishimori as the winner, but Tiger Mask 4, I believe, now finishes second place. And then in the other match, Jushin Liger gets the win over Heat with the Sheer Drop Brainbuster, as Block B finishes with Milano Collection AT as the winner, as this gets a 76. Liger gets a 76, Heat gets a 59. There we go. I believe that means our final semifinal matches for the Best Super Junior Finals tomorrow is Milano Collection AT versus Tiger Mask, and Ishimori versus Liger. And then in a big match, Tanahashi and Blue Wolf defeat Sasaki and Nakanishi when Tanahashi actually pins Manamu Nakanishi, one half of the tag champs. This gets a 67. Blue Wolf was the weak link. Blue Wolf gets a 43. Tanahashi gets a 71. Sasaki gets a 67, and Nakanishi gets a 59, and a big win for Tanahashi and Blue Wolf. And then in the main event, Goldberg, Nagai, and Fujita defeat Nakamura, Nishimura, and Makabe when Goldberg pins Makabe with the jackhammer. This gets a 64, Fujita gets a 55, Nagai gets a 53, Goldberg gets a 56, Makabe gets a 47, Ishimori gets a 54, and Nakamura gets a 70. And overall, the show gets us a 69. As we're now, next up is going to be the Best of Super Junior Final, which we'll basically have announced will include a tag title defense of the Pirates-Gun team of Norton and Nakanishi versus Tanahashi and Blue Wolf. As this continues to load, let's see if there's any interesting news, and then we'll also have the finals, or the tournament, obviously. And survey says, yeah, okay, Curryman injured, that's unfortunate for him. And was already shooting CM Punk versus AJ Styles. Hey, that's not too bad. Medical-wise, yeah, Curryman, he can work through it, but I might not do it. But so I'll be back with you guys in just a moment with the Best of Super Juniors finals. Well, there's 4 possible winners as we go to the tournaments. Ishimori and Tiger Mask in first and second place, and then Kanemato with 9 points, Samurai with 8 points, Kurima with 7 points, Strong with 6 points, Yamamoto with 2 points, and Anzo with 0 points. And then in Block B, Milano Collection AT with 12 points, Liger with 11 points, Heat with 10 points, Fujita with 9 points, Danielson with 8 points, Inoue with 4 points, Takamura with 2 points, and Taguchi with 0 points. So it's going to be, as I stated, Ishimori versus Liger and Milano Collection AT versus Tiger Mask 4. I'll be back with that in just a moment. Alright, it's now time for the Best of the Super Junior Finals, live from the National Stadium Gym, also better known as Sumo Hall, with a sold-out crowd of 12,000 people. And I'm starting out at the show because I don't want to spoil who actually won the tournament. So we start with a opening 4-way between some people from the tournament, with Fujita defeating Samurai, Anzua, and Strong. Fujita pins Anzua with the Fujita driver. This gets a 52, Samurai gets a 59, Anzua gets a 24, Fujita gets a 38, and Strong gets a 54. And it's time for our opening match on the actual card, as it's time to start out with the first match in the semifinals, as Milano Collection AT advances to the finals, defeating Tiger Mask 4 in 13:49 by submission with a 64. Milano Collection AT gets a 66, Tiger Mask 4 gets a 57, and a big win as he advances to the finals after going through his block undefeated. But then in the next match, in a huge victory, Liger gets a measure of revenge over Ishimori in 17 minutes with his sheer drop brainbuster in a 72, as Liger gets a 73, Ishimori gets a 55, and Liger advances to the finals against Milano Collection AT. And after that, in a undercard match, Ryoto and Nagai get the win over Yasuda and Yoshi in 10 minutes. When Nagai submits Yasuda, this gets a 38, Nagai gets a 57, Ryoto gets a 40, Yoshi gets a 38, Yasuda gets a 44. Nothing that special, honestly, but some way to get some guys on the card. The next match, Barnett, Asuka, and Murakami win a squash over the young boys of Yano, Goto, and Nagai. In 11 minutes, when Asuka pinned Nagai with a blizzard suplex, this gets a 53, Murakami gets a 57, Asuka gets a 61, Barnett gets a 60, Nagai gets a 25, Goto gets a 36, and Yano gets a 26. So some behind the into the booker's mind here for a second. Originally with Goto, I was actually going to set him up to turn on Tanahashi and join Supernova-gun, or another group as part because to sort of build him into an actual character. But with him and Tanahashi having good chemistry, that's been put on the back burner, or if it's going to happen at all. So he's just sort of stuck here doing not much for the moment. But speaking of not doing much, Sasaki doesn't have much to do after losing the IWGP title match, so he teams up with Pirates Good Brethren, Kenru, to defeat Makabe and Ishimori, as Sasaki submits Nishimura as a major revenge for the Pirates over the Supernova-gun team, as this gets a 63. Nishimura gets a 60, Makabe gets a 50, Sasaki gets a 75, and Tenenru gets a 46. And then in a 8-man junior tag match, as a special involving people from the junior tag from the junior league, Heat and Noe defeat Kikuchi and Yamamoto, Dragon Curryman, and Takemura and Kanemoto when Heat, the arch junior champion, pins young boy Yamamoto. This gets a 60, Yamamoto gets a 29, Kikuchi gets a 33, and Noe gets a 47, Heat gets a 61, Curryman gets a 59, Brian Nielsen gets a 67, Kanemoto gets a 65, and Takemura gets a 44. A strong win for Heat, as even though he didn't get into the semifinals, he still gets a strong win here at the Best of the Super Junior finals and is still your current junior heavyweight champion. And then after that, in a bit of a shocker, Hiroshi Tanahashi and Blue Wolf defeat Norton and Nakanishi in 13 minutes when Tanahashi pins Nakanishi with the high fly flow to win the IWGP Tag Titles. A big win for Tanahashi and Blue Wolf, as he's the current under 30 champion, and now is one half of the tag champions with Blue Wolf, who he's been teaming regularly with, and a big win as Norton and Nakanishi could claim, they've just defended the tag titles a few days ago in Osaka, and they have to defend them again, and this time they lose them. As this gets a 74, Nakanishi gets a 62, Norton gets a 69, Blue Wolf gets a 42, and Tanahashi gets a 75. And then in the first of the big matches, as what's going on with the feud, Tenzan defeats Takayama once and for all in a little over 15 minutes with the Tenzan Tombstone Driver. I imagine this is a battle of strikes, lariats, and big moves versus Takayama doing his MMA strikes. But in the end, Tenzan proves pro wrestling is a little bit stronger, getting the Tenzan Tombstone Driver and getting the pinfall victory here. This gets a 77, Takayama gets a 67, and Tenzan gets a 74. And then in our third match from the top, Goldberg and Fujita teaming up to defeat Nakamura and Chono in a little over 10 minutes, and Goldberg pins the IWGP champion with the jackhammer. Let's get a 75, Chono gets a 72, Nakamura gets a 76, Fujita gets a 58, and Goldberg gets a 59. Goldberg points to the belt again, but as Chono and Nakamura are basically recovering, Nakamura gets up and turns around right into a shining Mizuki kick from Chono, and then he walks away. As this gets an 87, it seems like Chono does not want to be a member of Supernova-gun, he still wants to be on his own. And then, in our semifinal of the night, Nagata gets the big win over Suzuki in a little over 20 minutes by pinfall. This gets a 78, Suzuki gets a 61, Nagata gets an 81. Strong win for Nagata, as honestly, I've sort of dropped him out a little bit too much, but he gets the big one here. And then, in the finals of the Best of Super Juniors tournament, in a 78, Liger defeats Milano Collection AT in 14 minutes with a sheer drop brainbuster, and he wins the Best of the Super Juniors title. So honestly, I wanted to figure out what was the best way to do with this, and honestly, Liger getting a bit of revenge over Ishimori, who got the big win for at the Dome Show, and a win over Milano Collection AT, and sort of sets him up here as still one of the top juniors in the game. As this gets a 74, Milano gets a 74, Liger gets a 70, but then, as Liger is given the big trophy, he's celebrating when on the big screen some video plays. Oh no, wait. Yeah, there's a video screen ad. Yeah, anyway, we'll say there's. The video screen pops up with none other than Ultimo Dragon, who says he will soon be finished in America, and he is returning to Japan to face Liger one more time. Big pop for that, as this gets a 67. And yeah, honestly, I don't actually have Dragon signed, but he's leaving WWE in 15 days, so there you go. And this show overall gets a 78. Good stuff. Let me make a speech. Milano Collection AT, group performance in 2 matches. Let's see here. Honestly, Nakamura, you did well. And what was actually a surprisingly good? Actually, that's just mainly just chemistry. I already gave Nakamura, so let's give Suzuki his props. There we go. And let's just see what loads up here and does anything weird as far as the build-up. But yeah, a big win for Liger. Honestly, I wasn't 100% sure even who I was going to put over. I had an idea about Tiger Mask going over, but he's not quite there yet. And like Milano Collection AT, as you can see, is still getting sort of the interesting things. Mahal is your new women's champion. Yay for her. Best Super Junior buy rate is 1.04. Crayman feels, yeah. And yeah, Crayman, okay, we get it. Crayman, you're retired. Quit doing random indies. So I just want to check a couple things. So first, let me look at Milano Collection AT. So pop-wise, he's already, okay, so he's actually slowly getting over low 40s. If we look at someone like Taiji Ishimori, he's sort of already almost in the right spot. Like, yeah, he's slowly getting there. So hopefully they'll stop being dinged by that. And then we look at someone like Nagata. Nagata's up to 80s, where he was like down from his height, but honestly, that's an over height. Takayama is down to 71, which is fine. Makabe, as far as someone being slowly built, is actually not being built that strongly, unfortunately for him. Nakamura, our champion, and the man is up to almost 80s again, world champion. Let's see here. Suzuki dropped a couple points, but not the end of the world. Vegeta is almost there as far as overness. Koji Katamono is getting there. Almost a 70. See, Sasaki had hurt by doing the drop to, he lost some points, but nothing huge. If we go to then to Liger, again, Liger has dropped 91s, but he's still super over by all things considered. Tanahashi's up to 73, so that's good. And who's the last guy? Right, Goldberg. Goldberg's up to almost an 81 here, so that should be a good match for him, Nakamura. And then again, if we look at the titles, Best Super Junior is Liger for the 4th time. I mean, what can you do? It's Liger. Our Young Lion Cup winner was Goto. Under 30 Weight Champion is still Tanahashi, even though he hasn't defended it since May. IWGP Tag Team Champion and new champions are Tanahashi and Blue Wolf, ending the reign of Norton Nakanishi after 2 defenses. Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions are still Milano Collection AT and Koji Kanemoto, with, I believe, with 1 defense. No, with 2 defenses so far, after winning the titles back in March. Junior Heavyweight Champion is still Heat, but of course, retained the title at Fighting Spirit, at King of Sports, and then at Nexus, as he's now 3 defenses in. Of course, still your IWGP Heavyweight Champion with 5 defenses is Nakamura. So, fun stuff. But that's it. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and give it a like. As next up is going to be Summer Struggle, which is sort of the pre-G1 mini tournament, mini tour. But if you like this, go ahead and give it a like, comment below what you're liking and not liking, and subscribe to our channel for this TEW 2020 content and some other fun stuff. But that's it for now. So talk to you later, and adios, and have a good one.